in. Today I'm going to break down the top 6 reasons why your Cricut might not be cutting through your material, and more importantly, how to fix it so we can get back to creating. Here's a quick rundown of the most common causes. Number 1, using the wrong blade for the material. Number 2, incorrect pressure settings in Cricut Design Space. Number 3, a dull or damaged blade. Number 4, a dirty blade housing that's affecting the blade's movement. Number 5, the material is not properly adhered to the mat. And number 6 is a faulty material setting selected in Cricut Design Space. So now that you know the top reasons, let's break them down one by one, starting with number 1, the wrong blade for your material. And I'm going to show you exactly how to know which blade to use. If you find that your Cricut isn't cutting through your material, the first and easiest step is to make sure that you're using the correct blade for the material that you're cutting. So let me show you how to find a quick cheat sheet to help you double check that you are using the right tool for the job. So first, we're going to head on over to Cricut Design Space, and we're going to click the image next to your name, then Settings, click on Machines. Make sure your machine is powered on. You'll see Custom Material Settings. We're going to click on Start, and then select the machine that you're using, and this will search and pull up your machine's specific settings, which already account for blade compatibility. Here you can scroll through and check which tool works best for the material that you're using. So for example, if I'm using chipboard, I'd scroll down to chipboard and see that when cutting with this specific material, you need a knife blade. So that is super simple, easy step to double check and make sure that you're using the right material with the right blade. So if everything looks good and you're using the right material with the right tool and you're still having issues cutting through your material, we're going to move on to number 2, which is incorrect pressure settings in Cricut Design Space, and I'm going to show you how to fix that. If your Cricut isn't cutting your material correctly, adjusting the pressure settings can also help. The pressure settings control how deep and forcefully the blade cuts into your material. So if the pressure is too low, the cut may not go all the way through. If the pressure is too high, it might damage your material or your cutting mat. Thankfully, Cricut Design Space lets you manually adjust these settings to get a cleaner, more precise cut, and let me show you how. So we're already in material settings. Now we're going to look at the cut pressure and multi-cut. Cut pressure determines how much downward force the blade applies while cutting. So if you're cutting on a thick, tough material, you'll want to use a higher cut pressure. If you're cutting on a lighter material, more delicate, you'll want a lower cut pressure. The multi-cut controls how many times the Cricut blade goes over the same line. If you're using thicker materials, sometimes need multiple passes to cut all the way through. For example, let's use cardstock. So we are going to scroll down to cardstock, and I first want to say I am using the Cricut Maker 3. So your settings may be different than mine if you're using an Explorer or a Joy or any other type of machine. The settings will be different, but in my Cricut Maker 3, this is what the settings are. Here are the settings for cardstock. 200 is the pressure, and the multi-cut is off. That just means it's not going to cut more than one time. It's just going to cut one time, that's it. And fine point blade. So to make the changes, you would click on Edit. Cricut usually recommends increments of 10. So if your cardstock paper is not cutting through at the 200 pressure, you can go ahead and just drag it, and let's say we can go to 210. Or you can hit the plus button and that'll increase your pressure as well. Then you would hit save. If you try it again and it's still not cutting all the way through, you can just continue that process. Maybe you need to go up to 220. If you notice that the cardstock paper is cutting through but not all the way, maybe there's just a few spots that were not cut, you can always change the multi-cut and have it just do one more pass. So you would change this to 2 and then you would hit save. If you have the opposite issue where it's ripping your cardstock, it's tearing your cardstock, it could be that your pressure is too high. So you would do the opposite. We started at 2, so you would go to 190. And if you were at 2 passes, originally it should be off. So you would just go to 190 and you would hit save. Number 3 is dull or damaged blade. Your Cricut blade is the most important part of the cutting process, and over time the blade can become dull or damaged, which leads to poor cuts, tearing of the paper, or incomplete designs. So what we want to do is clean the blade. You do this by grabbing a sheet of aluminum foil. You're going to roll it up in a ball and you're going to press the plunger at the top of the housing, and you're going to poke the blade into the foil 20 to 30 times, and this helps remove residue or buildup. That is something that can help as well. Number 4 is dirty blade housing. You can also press the plunger at the top of the housing and you can remove the blade carefully, and you can look inside to make sure that there's no fibers or paper or anything that may be stuck inside the housing unit. You can use a tweezers, compressed air to clean it out. If cleaning doesn't fix it, then it might be time to replace the blade. They actually recommend that you should replace your Cricut blade every 3 to 6 months. Number 5, material not properly adhering to the Cricut cutting mat. If your material isn't sticking properly to the Cricut mat, you can run into many problems, such as the material slipping or shifting while you're cutting it. The edges start lifting or curling, making the cuts look jagged. The material not laying flat, so the blade can't cut evenly, or worse, your Cricut tearing or dragging the paper instead of cutting it smoothly. I've been there, and trust me, it's frustrating. But don't worry, I'm going to walk you through exactly how to fix this. So let's go step by step. The first thing you want to do is see if your mat is dirty or losing stickiness. Over time, the Cricut mat loses their grip as lint, dust, and tiny material fibers build up. So if your material isn't sticking like it used to, this could be the cause. All you need to do is grab a lint roller or baby wipes, which they need to be alcohol free, and you'll just clean off the debris. If it's really dirty, you can even wash it with warm water and mild dish soap and then let it dry completely. If your mat is losing stickiness, you can also secure the edges with painter's tape, scotch tape, to hold down the cardstock. And if your mat is completely worn out, it might be time to replace it. You also want to make sure that you're using the right mat for your material. Not all Cricut mats are the same, so if your material isn't sticking, you might be using the wrong grip level for the type of project that you're working on. Cricut mats come in different colors. Each is designed for specific material, and here's what each color means. The green mat is for standard grip, medium weight materials like cardstock, vinyl, iron-on, and pattern paper. It provides a balanced grip that's not too strong or too weak. The blue mat is a light grip. It's for lightweight materials like printer paper, washi sheets, vellum, and thin cardstock. And it is great for delicate projects. It helps prevent tearing and curling. The purple mat is a strong grip. It's for heavy materials like chipboard, leather, poster board, and thick cardstock. It has extra adhesive strength, best for thick or textured materials that need more hold. And the pink mat, which is a fabric grip for fabric, felt, and bonded materials. It has a stronger adhesive to help hold the fabric in place while cutting. And that mat actually works best with a rotary blade. So if you're using a cardstock on a light grip mat or a chipboard on a standard grip mat, that could be why it's not cutting. So you'll want to switch it to the correct mat, and I promise you'll see a big difference. Number 6, faulty material settings selected in Cricut Design Space. If your Cricut isn't cutting through your material correctly, one of the most common reasons is that you've selected the wrong material setting in Cricut Design Space. This can cause cuts that are too light, too deep, or completely off. Let me give you an example. So a good example of faulty material setting is when you set the Cricut machine to set a specific material, but you actually are using a different material. So let's say you're cutting glitter vinyl, but you accidentally selected regular vinyl, then your cut is going to be too shallow. If you're cutting craft board, but you selected cardstock, the blade won't cut all the way through. If you're using a knife blade, but Design Space is set for a fine point blade, then the machine will not cut at all. So those are super easy fixes. Sometimes when we get in a rush, we don't pay attention, or our mind's just somewhere else, and we tend to select the wrong material, and that can be one of the reasons why your machine is not cutting correctly. I hope you find this troubleshooting guide helped you figure out why your Cricut wasn't cutting properly. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if one of these fixes solved your issue, I'd love to know which one worked for you. Comment below and let me know. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.